Hi, I'm Dave Monty and welcome to my video series, Everything Villages. Today we're going to talk about how to make a winning offer in this incredibly strong seller's market, so stay tuned. As always, the topics that I cover in my videos are in my free 42-page guide, Buying and Selling a Home in the Villages. If you'd like your free copy, just email me right here at davemontysales@gmail.com and I'll get you out your copy. Like I stated in the introduction, we are going to cover how to make a winning offer in this incredibly strong seller's market. Let's talk about that seller's market for 1 minute here. Currently, if you're coming into the villages or coming into the busy season in January 2022, we still are an incredibly strong seller's market with very low inventories. How does that affect making an offer? Well, if a home's been on the market for a little while, then there's a lot more negotiating room because the sellers are expecting their homes to be sold in a day or two. But if it's been sitting on the market for whatever reason, needs some updating, might back to a road, it might have some other issues that might not be appealing to the buyers coming in, again, then you can negotiate. We're going to talk mainly in this video about how to win multiple offers. Negotiating against a seller is actually fairly easy. Trying to win in a multiple offer situation becomes a little bit more complicated, and you have to be a little bit more careful with your offer. But as I step through the contract to show you each individual negotiation point, we will talk about what you would do in a multiple offer situation as well as a negotiating situation against the seller. Okay. I kind of mentioned that the homes that stay on the market for a while might need some updating, especially in the villages. Clients pay a huge premium for a home to be updated in the main part of the villages. Retirees want to move down, unpack, and go play. They don't want to go through the hassle of upgrading a home. We take that hassle away for you, so you find the model that you like that might need some updating, the location that you like, and then my wife and I, can handle the process of getting it updated for you to take the hassle out of it for our clients. I do have another YouTube video called Biggest Bang for Your Buck if you want to learn a little bit more about that and don't want to get into these ultra competitive multi-offer situations. Okay. So I'm going to step through the elements of a contract, both as is and standard contracts. The as is and the standard contract are almost identical. They're just different when it comes to how repairs are handled. Like I said, we're going to talk about the major negotiating points in each contract, as well as discuss what's called an escalating offer, beating the next highest offer by a certain amount up to a cap, and we'll talk about that specifically. We're going to step through the most important parts of the contract. Contract is 14 pages and probably 75% of it is boilerplate or definitions, or if what happens if something goes wrong. I'm more than willing to step through line by line with my clients when they go to make an offer, but that would be an awfully boring video if these aren't boring enough already. So let's talk about this first section. Pretty self-explanatory. You're going to put in the seller's name, the buyer's name, the description of the property, both the address and the legal description. An important part of this first section is down here in this personal property. What's going to stay with the home and what's the seller is going to take with them. Typically in the villages, it's standard practices to have all the kitchen appliances, including the refrigerator, as well as a washer and dryer, stay with the home. But that's just the standard practice. It is not a law or a regulation here. So I always like to stipulate that at least those items are staying. The seller, this section E is probably more important to them to tell the buyer what they're going to take with them. In a turnkey situation, pretty much most realtors like to make sure that the turnkey is sort of mentioned somewhere in the contract maybe, but the entire contract or bill of sale is handled completely separate outside of this. Main reason is if you end up getting a loan, the banks don't like to see personal property as part of the collateral, part of the contract here. So that's the first section. Then it brings us to pricing. Now, like I said, there is a difference between a home that's been on the market for a while and one that has been on the market for 1 or 2 days. It shows beautifully and there's going to be multiple offers. In a multiple offer situation, you're trying to beat the other competing buyers. When the home's been on the market for a while, you're trying to negotiate the price down from the seller. So your strategies are completely different. So regardless of the situation, I will do a full comp for my clients, and we're going to review pricing to determine what's the highest we'll go in a multi-bid situation, and in a negotiating situation what's as low as we can go without insulting the seller. My goal isn't to talk you into or out of making an offer on any home. My goal is to give you enough information that you can make an informed decision, and hopefully not an emotional decision, but a logical decision on pricing. But the number one rule is pricing is always subjective. I've been in multiple offer situations where we felt we were way over list and way over fair market value and still got beat hands down. If someone absolutely loves a property, they're paying cash, there's nothing you can do about someone who's going to come in and put a ridiculous offer on a nice property. My goal is to protect you from being ridiculous if possible. All right. On the contract, pricing goes on line 27, where you're going to put in the purchase price. Line 28 on this contract is how much earnest money you're going to put down on the home. It's enough money to hold this contract and the home until the closing date. This number needs to be decent size, big enough to make the seller feel like this is a strong contract. Putting $7,500 down on a $200,000 home might suffice, but putting $7,500 down on $1 million home won't suffice. And the thinking is that it might not be that difficult for a buyer who can afford $1 million to walk away from $7,500. The larger this number is, the more secure it feels to the seller. And I try to remind my clients, you're just kind of tying your own money up for a few weeks here, because this is your money that is going towards the purchase of the home. It's just held in escrow by the title company. Line 30 indicates how long you have to bring a personal check to the title company, or have me deliver to the title company, or have you FedEx it to the title company. If you're in town, we put a day or two. If you're out of town, we put 2 or 3 days. And then here's where they indicate who the title company is. Now, the seller will pick the title company because they are paying for the title insurance. They're paying to get you a clean title, so there you have the right to pick the title company. Line 45 is an interesting one. This tells the seller how long they have to get back to us on our offer. We say we want an answer by 10 p.m. tonight, or we're walking away. This is almost impossible to enforce in this market. The sellers have the upper hand, and if this time comes and goes and the seller chooses to ignore it, you really don't have any recourse other than to say, hey, we're going to pull our contract. Technically, the contract is already pulled if it goes past this date. However, what typically will happen is on a counter offer or acceptance, they will just cross through that date, put a future date in there so we're not in violation of this. So it's one of those things, I don't even know why it's in here. I do like to explain to my clients that we are going to put a date. We are going to try to force the hand to make a decision quickly, but just know that this is very hard in a seller's market. Again, this mainly applies for multiple offer situations, not so much for the homes that need some updating. Next thing that you're going to pick on an offer is going to be the close date. Typically, we're going to put about 5 weeks down. That's plenty of time for us to order an inspection, request repairs, have the repairs done, allow the title company enough time to do their title work to ensure that it's a clean title. If there's a loan, plenty of time for the loan underwriters to gather all their information to approve the loan on this specific house. So we like to put 5 weeks out. However, if you're paying cash, you have a little bit more flexibility. This is a point that most people are flexible with when they're coming to buying a home. I mean, if there's a specific reason why you have to be in on a certain date, then we'll definitely aim for a close date that is suitable to my client or the buyer in this case. But this is one of those places where you can actually go to the seller and say, hey, we're completely flexible on this close date, whatever works best for you. It kind of sets the tone that you're willing to work with the seller in order to make this transaction run smoothly. So if there is flexibility, I will always communicate that when an offer is submitted, even though we did pick 5 weeks here. This next section on financing is probably the most contentious when it comes to these contracts. In a multiple offer situation, sellers love to see cash offers. They feel that they're cleaner, that there's very little chance that these are going to fall through, and they love to see a cash offer. But what I want you to see is it says this is a cash transaction with no financing contingency. Basically, it means that you can still get a loan, but it's not contingent on the loan. If your loan falls through for whatever reason, you're still on the hook to pay cash for the home or forfeit your escrow money. So what I tell my clients is if you want to go down this path to check cash but still get a loan, you still need to show that you have enough cash to cover the sale of the home through proof of funds, basically photocopies of some accounts that say that you can afford to pay cash for the home. Now, you don't need a pre-approval letter because you are paying cash, but I do recommend to my clients who are going to use this method to get pre-approved to give you peace of mind that the loan will go through. About the biggest risk you can run into when you're doing this is that the home doesn't appraise. Well, number one, through the first 3 years I've been doing this, have not had one home that hasn't appraised. If it doesn't appraise, it's not going to not appraise by a wide margin. You're probably talking $10,000 to $20,000. Typically, retirees are putting down larger down payments anyway. So you never would ever stop the sale of a home, but it might require you to put a larger down payment. And again, that's typically not an issue because a lot of clients are putting more than 20% down anyway. If you are wanting to get a loan and it is more of a property that's been on the market for a while, then more than fine to go ahead and put that you are going to get a loan. It's even okay in a multiple offer situation because your price might be that much higher than somebody else's. And I'll talk about one place where that might not work. The next section we're going to get to. Now, this is where you start getting into the differences between the as-is contract and the standard contract. What we're looking at right here is the standard contract. And this confuses a lot of people. So I tend not to put any values in this box because it draws attention to it and it just becomes a complicated conversation for no reason. What this is saying, and you'll see it right there, closing costs, title insurance, survey, home warranty, specialty assessment, who pays for what? In a standard contract, the seller is going to pay for the repairs of the home that are found during inspection. What gets repaired are things that would affect the material value of the home or the ability to use the home. In other words, is the AC fixed? Is the roof not leaking? Are the holes patched in the wall, large holes, etc.? Or is there something that is going to affect the material value of the home? So what this states standard is that the seller will pay up to 1.5% of the price of the home or the purchase price of the home. So if it's a $400,000 home, they'll fix up to $6,000 for general repairs, an additional $6,000 for wood destroying organisms. That includes like termites and fungus and molds. And then if there are any issues with repairs that are not up to code, where someone may not have permitted an addition as an example. Okay. So what this is saying is that the seller is obligated to fix those items that have a material impact on the use of the home or the price of the home up to $6,000. Over $6,000, they don't have to fix it, but you don't have to stay in the contract either. The reason this is here is, say something massive happens to the house. So say it floods and everything gets ruined in the house and all the walls have to be repaired, and it's going to be a $40,000 fix. Well, if the seller doesn't have $40,000, then they can't be held to this contract. So it allows the buyer to get out. Typically, though, what will happen is, say one of the more expensive items needs to be repaired, like a new AC. So if you need a new AC that's running $8,000, $2,000 over this, the seller typically will still pay to have that fixed because now it's a disclosable item. They have to fix that in order to sell the house anyway. So this is in here to protect the seller from being forced to spend their money, but at the same time, they typically end up spending that money in order to make the sale of the home. Hopefully that all makes sense. When you go to make an offer, we can get into more details about this. The next section on here is section 12. And this just says how long you have in order to make your repairs. I always put 15 days to leave it blank. A lot of times they'll come back and want to do it within 10 days. And I've yet to have a problem getting my inspector here within 10 days. I just like to have a little bit of a grace period. What it says in section 12 actually is it says that you have to not only conduct the repair, but request the repairs of the seller within a certain time. The as-is contract is almost identical to the standard contract, except for this section in the closing costs for the sellers is not there, and section 12 just reads completely different. An as-is contract is almost like taking a standard contract and putting in 0% or $0 here. Meaning, if there's any damage to the home, the buyer can walk away from that contract if it costs anything. But again, say the AC is out, and you go to the seller and just go, we're not gonna buy this unless you replace the AC or give us credit for the AC. And the seller might just say, fine, we'll wait for somebody else to come along. Okay? But 9 times out of 10, they'll go ahead and repair that. So what an as-is contract is, and it's actually stronger for the buyers, in my opinion, because it almost gives you like a 10-day grace period to back out it for almost any reason. If there's a nail pop in the wall that might or might not be something that needs to be repaired, but it is something that's in the report that you're not comfortable with, you can walk away from the deal. But typically, the sellers will negotiate at this point. Having said that, you don't get to pick which contract you use. Typically, it'll say in the listing that we're only accepting the standard contract or only accepting the as-is contract. And the standard varies. In the Villages, the standard is the standard contract. Like down closer to Orlando, the standard down there is to use the as-is contract. All right. This is the next section down, and this is what I indicated before. In 99 out of 100 times, I click the seller, so designate the closing agent, and actually pay for those closing costs, including the title. The next section down is home warranty. When I'm dealing with my buyers, I will always request a warranty. Maybe 40% of the time, the seller says fine. Maybe 60% of the time it gets costly, saying they don't want to pay for a warranty, but it's at least worth asking for. But it's not worth killing a deal over either. So I set the expectation with my clients is we're going to ask for it, okay, but let's just know that there's a good chance that they might actually cross through it. So that concludes the major points of the standard contract, okay, which is going to be the price, how much you're going to put into escrow, how you're going to finance it, close date, etc. In a multiple offer situation, you want that as clean as possible. You prefer to be cash. It should be a good price. It should be a very decent escrow deposit, favorable close time for the seller. Maybe in multiple offer situations, we don't ask for the warranty, etc. Now, the difference comes in when we start negotiating. We can negotiate all those points in homes that haven't been there for a while. But when we do get to multiple offer situations, the other tool I like to use is something called an escalation clause. How this works is very simple. It's almost like putting a limit order on a stock. The home's list price is $400,000. I always tell my clients is in a multiple offer situation, it's going to go for more than list price, but let's make a list price offer. Because what I don't want to do is leave any money on the table for my clients. So what we say is let's beat the next competing offer by $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000. I'll explain when you would do that. Up to a cap. So we do our homework, it's $400,000. It's priced right at the kind of right below the high end, and we know that homes are sometimes going for a good 5% over list price in certain areas, as an example, right? So what we're going to say is we are going to make a list price offer, and then we'll beat the next competing offer by $2,000 up to $420,000 max that we'll pay for this home. Okay? Now that's my job, is to provide you with all that information so you can make an informed decision. I give you the numbers, I talk through the risk and reward of all these things, and then again allow you to make the decision. How much you go over the next competing offer depends. If you're making a cash offer, $1,000 is enough. if you are making an offer with a loan on that contract, even if you beat the next highest cash offer by $3,000, that $3,000 might not be enough to put the seller at ease. They might still go for the cash offer. So just depending on the circumstances, if you are going to use a loan in an escalating offer and you're not comfortable still making the cash offer even though you're going to get a loan, then you're going to have to exceed the next biggest offer by more than a few $1,000s, just in my experience. I hope you found this video informative. If you did, please hit subscribe. As always, the topics that I cover in my videos are in my free 42-page guide, Buying and Selling a Home in the Villages. If you'd like your free copy, just email me right here at davemontysales@gmail.com. And again, remember to hit subscribe. Hope you have a great day. Be seeing you around the villages. Take care.